Picture this. You're standing at the absolute summit of your professional life.
Right.
You've just secured this massive, life-altering career victory. So to celebrate, you pack a bag, grab some friends, and cross this invisible line on a map just a few miles south.
Sounds like a great weekend, honestly.
Yeah, exactly. But the celebration literally never happens. Because of one geographic wrong turn, you suddenly find yourself locked inside a foreign, cartel-run prison.
Oh, wow.
And you're fighting this desperate battle for your own survival for 8 agonizing months.
It's just like this massive psychological whiplash, right? You're instantly pulled out of a highly regulated arena where every single rule is strictly enforced, and you're just dropped into an environment where your autonomy is completely erased. The official laws are totally overridden by, well, the reality of the shadows.
And that is the exact nightmare that swallowed UFC welterweight contender Daniel Rodriguez. We're doing a deep dive into his incredible interview and journey today, but I mean, this isn't just about an MMA fighter making a comeback.
Yeah, not at all.
Rodriguez's story is this profound lens. Through his survival, we're going to explore the extremes of human resilience, the bizarre paradoxes of systemic corruption,
And honestly, a much darker reality.
right, how society views, modifies, and ultimately commodifies the human body.
We are going to trace a line from the micro to the macro here. We'll start with one man's physical survival in a gritty Tijuana prison cell and then connect that raw biological reality to the invisible systems of power operating around all of us.
Yeah, everything from high-tech biological shortcuts to global surveillance networks. So how does a professional athlete actually end up in a Mexican prison for 8 months?
It's crazy.
The way Rodriguez gets trapped is just a masterclass in bureaucratic paralysis. He's celebrating a UFC win in San Diego, decides to cross into Tijuana, and he has an ounce of marijuana in his backpack.
Which is what, about 28 grams?
Exactly. Coming from California, he assumes it's no big deal, right? Maybe a minor fine. And here is the jurisdictional trap. Mexico actually has decriminalized marijuana for personal use up to 28 grams.
But there's a massive catch.
A huge one.
The fine print, right. That decriminalization effectively applies only to Mexican residents.
Oh.
For tourists crossing the border, possession is still strictly prohibited. He made this completely natural assumption based on, his immediate environment in California and broad global headlines.
Yeah, but legal frameworks aren't universal, and that one assumption landed him with the threat of 6 years in prison.
6 years. Unbelievable.
Even then, I mean, he's been to Mexico before. He thinks, okay, I'm in a bind, I'll pay a bribe, maybe $500. I'll just be back in the States by Monday.
Right.
But he gets caught in this incredibly bizarre political timing. A recent election had just swept out all the old corrupt judges and installed new ones.
Yeah, this part is fascinating.
Okay, let's unpack this for a second, because if they just installed new judges who are actively trying to clean up corruption, how does that anti-corruption drive end up trapping a guy in jail for 8 months over 1 ounce of weed?
So think about what happens when your company upgrades its entire IT system overnight.
Everything completely freezes.
Exactly. Nobody knows how to process even a simple request. This is the unintended consequence of systemic reform. When a corrupt judicial system is suddenly forced to freeze and go by the book, the bureaucracy just paralyzes.
Because they're scared.
Yeah, the new judges are terrified of taking bribes, which used to be the grease that kept the wheels turning. But they also don't have the administrative fluidity or even the precedent to process a minor offense quickly.
That's it.
So the newly implemented rules actually prevent a resolution. People like Rodriguez get trapped in this transition period, languishing in a cell because the system is quite literally terrified to make a move.
That is just infuriating. Imagine being put on hold with your bank, but instead of elevator music, you're sitting in a cartel prison.
Yeah, a literal nightmare.
He only gets out after paying a massive, undisclosed financial sum and utilizing this wild legal loophole. His lawyer somehow managed to get him dual Mexican citizenship while he was locked up.
That's incredibly resourceful.
Right. And once he became a citizen on paper, he finally qualified for those lenient resident laws, and they let him out. But to get to that point, he has to survive the inside.
And the contrast between the official state prison and the reality on the ground there is just staggering. The initial processing is basically designed to break you down.
Completely. He is thrown into a hellish processing cell. We're talking 20 guys in a tiny room, sleeping on the cold floor or jammed into 3-level bunks, just getting eaten alive by bugs.
Brutal.
And the actual state guards come to him and try to extort him for $7,000 just to move him to a cleaner, safer cell.
Which really highlights how quickly a shadow economy establishes itself. The state provides the concrete walls, but the inmates themselves provide the actual infrastructure and governance.
Yeah.
What's fascinating here is that nature abhors a power vacuum, and corrupt systems are just full of them.
Exactly. But he gets incredibly lucky. A recently released inmate recognizes him from the UFC and connects him to a cartel boss who runs the third floor. This boss, who, by the way, was jailed for dressing up in full military gear and raiding rival drug houses, runs his tier like a dystopian country club.
Wow.
Rodriguez doesn't pay the guards the $7,000.
Hmm.
The cartel boss tells him the standard rate is actually a $3,000 rent fee paid directly to the guards to look the other way.
So he just buys his way into a better situation.
Yeah, once he pays the rent, he's in the VIP tier.
Yeah.
And it operates like this twisted corporate ecosystem.
It's highly functional, right? Organized crime establishes a brutal but very predictable order.
I mean, the cartel's HR department is literally better than the state's.
Yeah.
They basically onboard him by giving him a brand new Nike tracksuit.
That is insane.
The cell has TVs, a PlayStation, pizza deliveries. They even have a menu where inmates can pay around $1,500 to hire women for conjugal visits.
But I'm assuming nothing is actually free.
Oh, definitely not. In exchange for this protection and all these amenities, Rodriguez acts as the boss's unofficial muscle. When they walk the yard, it's just understood that this professional fighter has the boss's back.
Right, so he is exchanging his unique physical capital, his ability to inflict and absorb violence, for safety and resources within this enclosed economy.
Exactly.
But this brings up a terrifying biological reality. Even with all those cartel resources, his primary capital, his own body, begins to fail him purely because of the environment.
Yeah, because desperate to stay sane and keep his career alive, Rodriguez builds this MacGyver-style fight camp right in the prison yard.
What did he even use?
He uses water jugs wrapped in bed mats for a heavy bag. He bowls out plastic bags inside a sock, hangs it by bungee cords he bought from the guards, and creates a double-end striking bag.
That's incredible ingenuity.
He is grinding, working out 2 to 3 times a day. His mental willpower is totally unbreakable. But like you said, he hits a biological wall.
The diet.
Yeah, the cartel can get him a PlayStation, but the prison diet is entirely junk food. Chips, soda, tortillas, and soups made of just potatoes and carrots. It is entirely carbohydrates and sodium. There is zero protein.
And this is where the mechanics of human biology will always override mental toughness. When you exert yourself physically at the level of a professional fighter, you aren't actually building muscle during the workout, you're tearing it. You create these microscopic tears in the muscle fibers.
Right, and you need to repair them.
Exactly. Your body requires amino acids, the basic building blocks of protein, to repair those tears and actually make the muscle stronger.
But wait, if he's doing all that intense cardio and striking every day, shouldn't he at least maintain his physique, even on a bad diet? Like, why did he come out looking so malnourished?
Because without dietary protein, the body enters what is called a catabolic state.
A catabolic state.
Yeah, to fuel those 2 or 3 intense daily workouts, his body basically says, okay, we need energy to survive this exertion, and we need it right now. Since it's not getting any protein from his food, it looks around, targets its own muscle tissue, and essentially eats it.
Oh, man.
His body had no choice but to cannibalize his own biceps and chest just to fuel his survival. It proves that resilience isn't just a mental state. It is deeply, unforgivingly physical.
You can have the strongest mind in the world, but if your biological machine doesn't have the literal building blocks, it will consume itself.
Yeah, it has to.
When he finally gets out, he's lost a massive amount of muscle. He can barely run a single mile. He tries to wrestle his teenage son and just gets completely ragdolled.
He had to start from absolute zero.
He goes to the UFC Performance Institute in Vegas, and he utilizes cutting-edge biohacking to rebuild his body cell by cell.
It's this slow, agonizing process of biological reconstruction. The source mentions he uses hyperbaric oxygen chambers, which rely on pressurized environments to force high levels of oxygen directly into the blood plasma. It drastically accelerates cellular healing, and he also uses supplements like NMN.
Okay, let's break that down, because NMN sounds like science fiction to me. How does a supplement actually rebuild a fighter?
Well, think of NMN as raw, high-grade fuel. When you take it, your body converts it into a molecule called NAD. NAD acts like a microscopic cellular mechanic. It goes in and repairs the wear and tear at the very ends of your DNA strands, which are called telomeres.
Wow, okay.
By lengthening those telomeres, it essentially tricks the cells into recovering with the speed and efficiency of a much younger body.
That's wild. So he does all this grueling work to rebuild himself, truly respecting his body as a complex machine. But if we look outside that gym, there's this profound, almost horrifying psychological divergence happening in broader society.
The contrast is incredibly sharp.
While Rodriguez is sweating for every ounce of muscle, we are currently living through a societal obsession with biological shortcuts. Look at the explosion of GLP-1 drugs, things like Ozempic and retatrutide.
Yeah, millions of people are using these medications for rapid weight loss. But the actual mechanism of that weight loss is often forced starvation.
Which mimics exactly what happened to Rodriguez in prison.
Exactly. People are experiencing literal bone density loss and muscle cannibalization because they just aren't eating enough protein while they're on the drug.
But the craziest part isn't even just physical. According to the deep dive sources, these drugs are allegedly killing people's psychological ambition.
Yeah.
Like, it turns off the food noise in the brain, but users are reporting it also kills their drive for alcohol, cigarettes, and even their ambition at work. How does a weight loss shot make you stop caring about getting a promotion?
Because the drug targets the brain's reward and dopamine pathways. It suppresses the signals that tell you to seek gratification.
Oh, wow.
But here's the thing. The brain's reward center doesn't easily discriminate between a craving for a donut and a craving for success or connection or competition.
That is terrifying.
When you chemically bypass the discipline of diet and exercise, you're tampering with the very dopamine systems that drive human ambition. You get the aesthetic result, but you sacrifice your internal drive and, in many cases, your structural bone density.
It's just this hollow pursuit of instant gratification. And here's where it gets really interesting. If you think chemically starving yourself is an extreme shortcut, there is a cosmetic trend happening right now that is genuinely stomach-turning.
I know exactly what you're going to say.
They call it dead ass or zombie filler.
Yeah.
Surgeons are literally taking fat from human cadavers to use in Brazilian butt lifts.
It is a complete dissociation from our physicality.
They strip the DNA out of the dead tissue, turning it into this structural matrix of collagen and proteins, which, by the way, the source graphically describes as clumpy butter.
Ugh, yeah.
And they inject this dead tissue into living women's bodies just to skip the gym. Think about this contrast. Are we treating our bodies like biological machines that require care, or are we just treating them like customizable video game avatars where you can hot swap parts from a corpse?
When you view your body merely as an aesthetic vehicle rather than a functional organism, injecting cadaver tissue becomes a logical, albeit grotesque, shortcut. It completely bypasses the biological reality of what that tissue is and where it actually came from.
And if injecting cadaver fat for cosmetics is just the tip of the iceberg, we have to look at the absolute darkest extreme of bodily commodification mentioned in our sources. The Chinese plastination exhibits.
Yeah, this is incredibly dark.
These are global museum displays where human corpses are stripped of fat and turned into plasticized statues displaying muscles and ligaments. The official claim is that these are unclaimed bodies. But the math absolutely does not add up.
No, it raises a terrifying question about the supply chain of human tissue. Legally, it takes 30 days for a body to be officially declared unclaimed by the state.
Okay, 30 days.
However, to successfully plasticize a body, the preservation process must begin within 48 hours of death.
Wow.
If you wait any longer than that, tissue necrosis sets in and the muscles begin to literally rot and break down.
So if a body must be processed within 2 days, but the legal window for a family to claim their loved one is 30 days. Bodies are being intercepted and commodified before families even know they are dead.
The logical conclusion from those numbers is a systematic, industrial-scale harvesting of human remains.
The scandals surrounding this are just pure nightmare fuel. Our source material references a persistent rumor about a pregnant woman featured in one of these global exhibits.
Right.
She had an 8-month fetus in her womb. People noticed she looked exactly like a missing news anchor who had allegedly had an affair with a local mayor.
And the connection there is.
Conveniently, that mayor's wife was the manager of the local plastination factory.
Unbelievable.
You have a pregnant woman turned into a museum display. And this isn't just isolated to museums. Just recently, the sources cite a 2024 scheme where 4,000 corpses were secretly stolen and sold to be used for allogenic bone grafting products.
Selling them for parts.
Yes. Families were handed fake ashes while their loved ones were chopped up into spare parts for the global medical market.
This raises an important question because it is the absolute total destruction of bodily autonomy. When we started this discussion, we looked at Daniel Rodriguez temporarily losing his freedom in a Tijuana prison.
Yeah.
But even in that cell, he still retained ownership of his mind and his fight. What these plastination and corpse theft scandals represent is the ultimate loss of autonomy.
Exactly.
It's where a state or a corporation can commodify your literal flesh and bone without your consent, turning your physical existence into a raw commodity.
So we've seen how a corrupt state can trap your physical body
Yep.
and how the global market can commodify your physical tissue. But what happens when that same logic of invisible control is applied to your digital identity?
That's the next layer of this.
The documentation we're exploring outlines several massive allegations regarding global surveillance. And just to be completely clear to you listening, we are strictly looking at claims presented in leaked documents provided in the source material, specifically surrounding the data analytics company Palantir and global espionage. We're not endorsing these claims, just reporting on what the source material covers.
Right, exactly. The documents posted by internet figure Kim.com allege a sweeping AI-driven surveillance apparatus.
The allegations claim that advanced AI is being used to surveil and blackmail world leaders, basically synthesizing thousands of hours of transcribed conversations to map out vulnerabilities.
Yeah.
The documents also outline alleged espionage tactics from China, claims that they're systematically buying land near sensitive military bases, developing autonomous drone armies that communicate with each other in the sky, and manufacturing hyper-advanced electric vehicles that vastly outpace Western technology.
And the concern there is that they could potentially act as rolling data collection hubs. Now, whether or not every single specific allegation holds weight, the overarching theme in the material is undeniable. We are moving into an environment where the individual is entirely outmatched by opaque, hyper-advanced systems.
Yeah.
Whether it's AI algorithms predicting your behavior or a judicial bureaucracy that forgets you even exist, we live in a world where control is increasingly invisible, total, and automated.
Which brings us to the most poetic, almost cinematic comeback for Daniel Rodriguez.
It really is.
After surviving the corrupt Mexican judicial system, fighting off biological starvation, and navigating this modern world dictated by invisible algorithms and global control, he is finally scheduled to fight again.
And where is he fighting?
He has booked to headline a UFC event in Serbia against Medic.
Huh.
It's the first ever UFC event in Serbia, and Serbian crowds treat sporting events like actual warfare. They literally beat war drums in the stands.
Wow.
The source even mentions rumors floating around about a potential future UFC fight happening on the lawn of the Trump White House. The spectacle is massive.
But if we connect this to the bigger picture, look at the contrast. You have all these invisible, chaotic systems of control closing in cartels, AI surveillance, political theater, but when the cage door locks, it is just two men.
It's the ultimate pure controlled environment.
Exactly. It explains why fighters like Rodriguez often seem so remarkably calm inside the octagon. When you have survived the unpredictable, shadowy danger of a foreign prison, or a lifetime navigating systems designed to break you, stepping into a cage to fight another trained killer is actually a relief.
Because it makes sense.
Right. It's terrifying to the average person, but for a fighter, it offers a sanctuary of clear, enforced rules. The variables are limited. There is a referee. In a world full of invisible threats and bureaucratic traps, a punch to the face is honest.
We followed an incredible arc today. From a Tijuana jail cell, where a man was starving and stripped of his autonomy, to the main event of a UFC card in Serbia, physically rebuilt cell by cell using the cutting edge of science.
It really forces every single one of us to examine our own relationship with resilience and reality. The contrast couldn't be sharper, right? You have a man who endured the most grueling physical and mental process to reclaim his life, placed right alongside a society that is practically begging for a chemical shortcut.
It leaves you with a question to ask yourself the next time you face a massive setback. Do you look for the societal shortcut? Do you reach for the easy way out, the quick fix that might hollow out your ambition and your structure? Or do you commit to the grueling cell-by-cell process of rebuilding yourself through discipline?
Because in a world where our data is silently harvested by algorithms, where our movements are tracked by surveillance, and where our very biological tissue can be commodified, stripped of DNA, and sold for parts, is mastering your own physical discipline and enduring hardship one of the last true forms of rebellion and personal ownership we have left?
Keep that in mind the next time you assume you're on the safe, predictable path, just to find out you've crossed an invisible line on a map. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Keep questioning the systems around you and explore these concepts further on your own.